Okay, in this section, we're going to be talking about rule of thirds. By now, you should already know what rule of thirds are. Is one of the most talked about rules for photography to take better pictures. I have found very recently that there's actually many rules for composition that makes pictures look interesting. And the rule of third is one of the weakest rules out there to take better pictures. Now, I don't want all these reviews coming in that say that I bash rule of thirds and I'm not a professional photographer because of it. But, just really research the other things that make an image look interesting. There's this video on YouTube that you should watch that says, rule of thirds, myths about the rule of thirds. And then it's going to show that why the rule of thirds should not be the main thing that we should be focusing on. I want to show you what the rule of thirds is very quickly, just using this image. And then some of the things that I've learned about the rule of thirds. So the idea of rule of thirds is that if you have a grid like this, and you can open the grid in the settings of your camera. We talked about it in settings. You just turn on grid or off. You'll have these lines. If you put your subject where these lines connect, so right here, right here, right here, or right here. And in my experience, it's always better on the top right or the top left rather than on the bottom ones. Then the subject's gonna look very interesting. Okay. Now it looks here that they're just on this line. But what they're saying is that the head of the person, the part of the person that matters, which is the top part, is on the line or very close to the line, where these lines connect. So this is following the rule of thirds. The image looks more interesting. But the thing about it is that there's tons of images where if you put the person in the center, and there's symmetry in the image, so the right side is even to the left side, that having the person in the center is going to look very interesting. There's other rules that if you have a nice balance between left and right side, that you can spread out your subject. You can have multiple subjects, and such. There's so many things that say that the rule of thirds shouldn't be everything that you focus on, but you really don't know, and you're putting the person in the middle and it's not looking interesting, then you can try putting them where these lines connect, and using the rule of thirds to help you. Just try a different composition. The other problem with rule of thirds is that it forces you to take too much picture that might be unnecessary. So you're over here trying to put the subject right here, right? And then now you're forced to take a picture of, you see these things in the floor here that's dirty, right? But if I would have zoomed in and the picture looked like this, okay, it's not following the rule of thirds, but I got rid of all of this distracting elements. So garbage in the floor that you felt like you had to take to follow the rule of thirds now becomes a bad image, because now this is like, what the heck is this? Why is this in the picture? Now, yes, you can edit it out, but you're not always going to edit it out. So now you have all these unwanted things in the picture because you wanted to follow the rule of thirds. So this picture looks better to me than this picture because of the garbage in the floor. The other thing is, what if it was just a person and I don't want the headroom? So this looks better than this with unwanted headroom and unwanted space on the right side because I was following the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds makes you take pictures that adds more negative space that's useless. And it's almost like the rule of thirds should be followed if the whole scene looks interesting. But if it's more about the subject, then in my experience, just make the subject fill most of the frame, and then that's going to look more interesting than following the rule of thirds. So things like that is stuff that you need to consider. If you're taking a landscape picture and the subject is this little thing, you can maybe put him in the right in the lines. Or if the subject's very important, then just zoom in on the subject and make them fill up the whole picture. That's what I wanted to talk about when it comes to rule of thirds. Hopefully this helped you guys out and make you look at rule of thirds differently. And now we're going to move on to the next lecture.